Hey guys, this is Jennifer from the Shooter's Mindset, and we are here tonight. I've got Greg Cannon live in the house.
Hey everyone.
How's it going?
Awesome.
And the guest of the hour. This is episode 316 with Matt Rooks. Shoots for the Short Action Customs and just shot in the AG Cup. So we're going to talk about kind of all of that stuff. And how's it going, Matt?
Good. What's up? I'm excited to be on here.
Yeah.
It
You know
only
you've
took you
made it in
guys
life, right?
it only took you guys 315 episodes to get me on here.
I know. We were saving the best, see. We have to build up. You can't start with the best, right?
Right. Yeah.
Got to build up. Well, for anybody that doesn't know you or is not familiar with you, because some of our viewers are not PRS shooters, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into shooting and the competitive world.
Yeah, so I'm out of Columbus, Ohio. It's just shooting's just a hobby. I do it for fun, and I grew up on a farm shooting, going out shooting groundhogs and birds and stuff like that. And after college, I think it was 2015, I was on YouTube and I saw this video of this guy. It was George Gardner at the time. I think it was might have been the gap grind video, and they were running. It was like a 7-minute stage or something crazy. I mean, they were running and running and running and doing some shooting and climbing. And anyways, the rifles looked really cool, so I decided to build one. And at that time, it was only about 2 or 3 years into short action customs getting started, and Mark's company is only 2 hours from where I was living in Columbus. And at that time, he had a little shop in a barn, and it was just him and another guy, and they had basically two lathes. And I went up and met him, and the rest is history from there. So
That's awesome. So you have been shooting how many years total in the PRS?
let's see. I met David Cooper. Um, I think it was the spring of 2016. I think that's when it was. It was either 2015 or 2016, but we met at Peacemaker Training Facility. It was like 20 degrees, 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was snowing, and anybody who shot that match remembers that we had to sit on a toilet and shoot like 600 yards, and basically none of us could feel our hands. And it was
That's
insanity.
awesome.
It was our first match, and so that's when I started. And then I don't even know if I would consider that a real match. The very first real match I had was K&M, and that was a lot of fun. I going remembering back, I can see why K&M is the facility that just pulls people in and hooks them on the sport. I mean, it,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who shot like Peacemaker, I mean, I don't know, I probably had like 40 hits all weekend. And then you go to K&M and you're like, the first day you have twice as many hits, and you're like, I can do this. Like it just makes you feel like, you can compete, and it pushes you to do more. It's a pretty cool facility. But that was probably my first match. So
That's awesome. You've been pretty successful. So tell us a little bit about Short Action Customs and like what all products do they have? You can tease a little bit and save some of the other stuff for later if you want, but tell us a
yeah,
little bit
so
about Short Action Customs.
I got some cool little products here that I'll show you guys. But first and foremost, I'd say Short Action Customs' biggest thing is their custom rifle building. That's what I read online when I was looking at who should I go with, and when I met Mark, and the attention to detail. I mean, everything is just. I mean, the paint schemes. But he started out with building the rifles, and they're just perfect. I mean, they're phenomenal. And then everything has grown from there. And the two big things they're doing now is he's starting to make reloading accessories, and he's also doing a lot of paint work. And so at the AG Cup, I don't know how many times guys were coming up and talking about my rifle and saying how sexy it was, and you know, there's a Mandalorian symbol in it for any of you Star Wars geeks out there. And then at the same time, I also like the new paint schemes of the Corvette in the Le Mans Racing Series. And so I said, could you take this symbol and these two colors and make me something? And they made an awesome rifle for me. So unfortunately now for 2021, I want to do another one and think up of another scheme and test them and see how they can paint me something up. But Short Action Customs is just growing. I mean, it was just perfect custom rifle builds, and now it's different types of reloading accessories. Mark's got a Haas machine, and he's like a mad scientist on that. He's always coming up with things. And so who knows what he's going to come up with next.
That's awesome.
But, yeah. And his team's growing. You know, they've got, I think they've got 7 employees now. So it's grown big time from when it was just him only 5 years ago. So
that's crazy that it is. I feel like so many of the companies in the PRS particularly have done that. Like they're newer companies and they've just exploded. I mean, if you look at Swanee, like Swanee just started doing this, and like now there's not anybody that doesn't know Swanee. Like every single person that friend requests me, and I'm like, wonder who that is. And I'm like, mutual friends, Swanee. Like Swanee's friends with everybody in PRS.
Yeah. He's probably the friendliest guy in PRS. And a lot of these companies that are developing out of the PRS, as you notice, they're no bullshit companies. They don't make something to fill in something else. They make something right, or they sell the right stuff. You know, if you look at Swanee's, there's no $9.99 cleaning kits on his website. There's no, you know, miscellaneous stuff you could buy at Walmart. And same thing with Short Action Customs. There's no bullshit. It's just good quality products that we're missing from the marketplace.
Yeah, and it's funny, like you look at a lot of these products and you're like, who would ever pay for something like that? And then next thing you know, you're having it, you're buying it and having it shipped, and you're like, yeah, now I understand why it costs this much. And
yeah, so I
buy once, cry once.
I started out in USPSA, and you know, at the time it was like, man, you know, I really want one of those 2011s, but they were like $3,000. Ooh, that's crazy. And now, you know, Razor there, Curtis Custom there, that's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, oh, maybe I should build another one.
We
have lots of comments here.
You should order one from Short Action Customs. I think they'll help you out.
Nice.
No.
I have like $7 right now.
Yeah, me too, legit. Jake Vibert says, hey, Rooksy. Craig Arnzen says, he's so dreamy.
You like my hair, Craig?
Cooper says, Matt is such a stud.
Oh, boy.
Wes Castle gave the googly eyes, the heart eyes emojis. Bob Rooks says, I'm so proud.
Uh-oh.
Greg Morris.
I just had to send home some of my gear from the AG Cup. Apparently he wants, he believes the stuff I use works now or something. I don't know. So my mom came down to babysit, so I had to send home some gear for him to use in the regional finale next weekend.
That's funny.
Nice.
Greg Moore says your rifle photographs well.
It really does.
And Troy wants to know what you drinking there, Rooks.
I'm drinking Columbus Brewing Citra Noel. Usually I don't crack out the Christmas beers until Thanksgiving Day, but
It's a little early.
yeah, I didn't care for the pumpkin beers this year, so I just went straight for the Christmas beers. Pretty good.
So AG Cup, let's talk about that just a little bit. That was just what, a week and a half ago? So
Yeah.
we were talking a little bit before the show, like how would you describe the match to people that weren't there, or even to people that watched it but didn't get to shoot in it, like the actual changes of how it was shooting in it?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely different than the national matches that we shoot all the time. I mean, the fact that you're not seeing how, for the most part, I mean, you kind of can see how a guy's running a stage or whatever, but you know, you're a ways away from the stage, and the fact that you don't talk about it, that you don't see trace, that you don't listen to anybody talk, you don't hear wind calls. I mean, it's a whole different style, and then on top of all of that, you have camera crews, you have
No, you don't have obnoxious camera people.
yeah, they're just always in your face with microphones. I don't know, it just and then you have all the money on top of it. But this year was even a lot more fun because of the cut. Everybody was talking about the cut line, and it, I mean, it adds a big element to to your shooting. When you get the books, you know, it was funny to see everyone's reaction this year, because last year there were, what, I think 20 of us or 15 of us, I can't even remember, and we all sat down and we're like, wow, this is going to be like a meatball match. I mean, these are big targets. He's given us all this time. And then we get out there and we start getting, you know, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10. And the same thing happened this year with a lot of the new guys. I think they probably looked at the stage books and they're like, oh, wow, you know, it's an 8-inch target at 400 yards, no problem. And it's completely different. So Tom does a great job running that match, and I think Sykes is a big part of that, and Christie. They do a great job with setting it up and realizing that it is a lot harder when you don't have somebody telling you when call and watching how they run the stage. So
the whole blind part, I kind of see it as a double-edged thing. So one thing that ever since I very first started off in competitive shooting that has always screwed me, no matter what discipline, is I'd walk up to a stage and I'd be like, this is how I'm going to shoot this stage the best. And this is what's going to work best for me. And this is what my instincts are going to do when the timer starts and I forget everything else in the world. But then also you can't watch and see where other people are missing. You can't, you know, spend 45 minutes on wind, you know, watching people shoot, watching the wind beforehand. How do you feel that affected your shooting?
I think it helped. You know, I think there's a lot of shooters out there that if they would just shoot their own match and not, the first thing they do is ask for a win call, or even watch people how they run a stage, I think they would be a lot better off, and they probably would perform a lot better. That's why I hope a lot of guys out there who are on the fence about shooting AG Cup next year shoot it, because you know, there's, I think, a lot of shooters out there who are better than they think, especially when they got to make a win call and maybe somebody came off the line and A, they lied and gave the wrong win call, or B, they really had no idea what they were doing and they just gave a win call to try to feel like they were helping. Mm-hmm. So I think it helped me. Where my parents' farm is, it's a pretty cool place to shoot, and a lot of my buddies from back home, we go up and shoot there. And when we go out and practice and shoot together, we don't talk win call. So that's like the number one rule when you come to the Rooks Ranch and we set up stages. we don't talk about wind until after we run a couple of the stages. So everybody can kind of figure it out on their own and get better at shooting.
That's a pretty good plan. I still use wind crutches, but yeah, that's funny that you said people giving off a wind call so they could, feel helpful. A couple, every once in a while I'll know the wind for sure and be able to give a good description, but we were shooting a match with a lot of higher level shooters, and every time I came off of a stage, people would be like, hey, what was the wind? What was the wind? And I'd be like, listen, I like you, so I'm not going to say anything because I don't know. I was like, I could take a guess, but I don't want to fuck with what you're thinking. You've been watching through glass, and I don't have a good call for you. I just got a 2 on that stage, and I don't know how I hit those targets.
Right.
What do you think was a bigger, I know all of y'all had a whole different mental mindset there. What do you think was the bigger pressure? Do you think it was the money on the line, or everybody, like the cameras and everybody watching and it being so much, more hyped up? What do you think was a bigger issue?
I think probably the biggest pressure day one was the cut. I just loaded 400 rounds of ammunition. I just flew in. I just rented a rental car from Atlanta. I drove almost 3 hours down here, and I could be going home tomorrow. I mean, that was probably the biggest stressor that was in the back of my mind, that I was trying not to let it get in my head. It was back there. It was, sitting on my shoulder talking to me. But one of the things that kind of helped me was last year and confidence. And, that Thursday night, Jake and John, they brought a few of us in to talk about, on their podcast, the AG Cup round 2, basically. And that I felt like to me was enough to realize, like, Preston was in there, Jason Green was in there, Austin Orgain, Jake and John, and we were all talking, and I'm like, man, I was here with you guys last year and was competing, and it was enough to kind of quiet that little like devil down of, hey, you could be going home tomorrow. But I would say, I think a lot of guys would say that cut was probably the most pressure. Now, day 3 was the money. I'll definitely say day 3, the money was on my mind. I didn't care, I didn't care about finish, because all I could think about was, if I can get in the money, that's, when the pressure is going to come. And sure enough, it did. I definitely was feeling the pressure going into the last 2 stages, is when you and I passed each other, and you wanted to know how I was doing, where I was at. And I was like, I'm not talking to you. Leave me alone. I don't want to know what's going on.
He did. He said, I don't know. He kind of gave the go away. Don't get near me. Like Greg Bell, who said, can I pay you to not get near me?
So hold on. I'd like to bring up one point. You said you loaded your ammunition before you went to the match?
So I actually loaded my ammunition, let's see, like the Thursday, the week before, and then I shipped all my stuff down to Masterpiece Arms. So all those people out there worrying about like bullet freeze and ammo getting dry and stale and all that jazz, I think I proved that theory wrong. But
let's say we had some shooters with a hitch mounted press loading outside the cabins.
I saw that. I saw Webster was doing that.
Yeah, Derek Webster. That was so funny.
That cracks me up.
That would stress me out. I don't know how he did that. That would totally stress me out.
Yeah, I don't know.
Eric said fresh ammo is the best ammo. That's the truth.
That was funny, though. Whenever we passed, I was trying to keep everybody up, like say who was in the lead, and if Rooks gets an 8 on this, then this. And I wouldn't have told you any of it, but I'm like, I had to know that piece to be able to tell the people where everybody stood. So I'm like, what'd you get? And you're like, I don't know. Like, get away.
Well, so it was like, so day 3, you know, Pinch and Sanowski and Morgan King and Derek Webster, we were all chatting. Brian Allen was quiet. I think he was doing really well too, up until I think it was the KYL stage. But so he was kind of staying in the zone, but those guys were goofing around because they had a couple bad stages and they knew they were out of it. And the stages that they were bad went really well for me. So they were chattering like, Rooks, you're in it. You're our only hope for our squad. And so I knew I was in it. And looking back, I think next year I'm just going to go up and look at the board. And
that's what I was about to ask. Did you look at the board, or did you completely
I did not look at the board once. I didn't look at the board once day 1 because I thought I, you know, was going to win day 1. And then I didn't look at the board once day 3 because I knew I was fighting back in. Day 2, when I was barely at the cut line, I kept checking it. But luckily I had such a strong day 1 that it pulled me through no matter what. But yeah, I think next year I'm just going to look at the board. That board live scoring is super cool. It gets everybody chattering and talking and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I think we've learned a few things to make it a little bit better for next year. Bouncing ideas off of Tom and Haywood. So if you haven't seen, or any of our viewers haven't seen, go look on the Shooters Mindset Facebook page. And I got to put it up on YouTube at some point in time too. But for the last 2 stages of day 3, we did like an hour-long live. We just didn't stop. And we actually had something faster than the live scoreboard, which is Jen running around and asking people what they shot on stages. So it's
well,
it's
4 of the top ones were on one squad, and then Matt was on the other squad. And so I'm literally like keeping up in my head, okay, so this person now has this much. And I literally, to be honest, Chad Heckler was texting me wanting to know, and Francis were wanting to know what's going on. And so I started texting the scores to them, and it was partly for me, because then I could remember what, now that they've added this stage in, what they had. And so then at one point I ran over to y'all's to see what you had shot on the boat stage. Yeah. And so I go running over there, and I'm like, Christy, what did he get? So that I can run back over.
I would say in the middle of the live, so I haven't actually watched it, but I'm sure you hear me and Jen chatting in the background a little bit. And it's like someone's in the middle of shooting, and we go from like, oh yeah, you know, this person needs an 8 to move from this position to that position. And you're like, you know, shit, I think Rook's already shot. We need to go over there. No, I'm just gonna go run over there real quick and see what Rook shot. I'll be right back.
I did, I ran to the ridge and asked anyway.
Yeah, I think I had 5 people ask me after that stage what I got, and I didn't know the score. And I'm like, I know I didn't get high enough to get what all of these people want to see. John yelled down, he was all pumped up. He's like, Rooks, what'd you get? And I was like an 8, and he's like, oh, and he just walked away. And I was like, all right. He didn't hide it at all. I was like, so does that mean that I was close to being in the money? Does it mean I just dropped out of the top 10? What does that mean? He was just like, oh, you suck. All right, see you later. And he's like, all right, we're going back. So.
It was an interesting match, because there's so many of y'all that I just love to death. And I wanted everybody to win. It was hard. It was hard to root for 1 or 2 people, because so many of y'all I consider friends. And I was like, man, I really want everybody to win. But everybody couldn't win.
Yeah.
It was crazy day 3 when we first started shooting, and it hit me on the company that I was in. It was just impact after impact after impact. Those first 3 stages, if you remember, there was no wind, and they were pretty hard stages. I think Fuller said that they were supposed to be the easier ones, but we had two 12-point stages and a 13-point stage. And all of them had like, what, two of them had 5 or 6 different positions of movement. And then one of them was a rooftop. And then it was, but anyways, I dropped 2 on every single one of those stages. So I was down 6 after 3 rounds. And I was sick to my stomach, like, I'm out of this. I'm done, because everybody I felt like was cleaning that. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe when it comes out, I don't know, maybe Orgain was down there with me and he battled back too. But after those 3, when that wind kicked on and it went right back up to, 10, 12 mile an hour winds from 9 to 11 o'clock, it was like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like day 1. And I put in all my data from day 1, the vector that it was coming from, the velocity, I was measuring everything. And then it was like 11 out of 12, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And at the same time, Pinch, Sanowski, Webster, Morgan King were like 4 out of 10, 0 out of 10, 2 out of 10. And I was like, okay, I bet I'm back in this. And then they were all rooting for me too in the squad. So it kind of carried me along. But
I've never seen all of y'all. I say all of y'all, those that made the AG Cup, I look up to y'all as really good shooters. I've never seen so much timing out. Like, it was crazy, because usually y'all don't time out. Like, you're usually smooth and done, and like everybody was timing out some. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was what, earlier we were talking about, the difference between the AG Cup and a national match. All it takes is to watch one guy go and see if he times out, or see how close he was to the clock based off of his movement and his positioning and everything. When you don't have that, sometimes you kind of lose that sense of feeling of urgency, or how fast you're moving. Do I send this shot and then not watch the follow-up and move so I can get through to the next few? Do I have time to watch that shot go all the way out to 900 yards? There were some stages where you didn't have time to do that. There were stages where you were running the bolt when the bullet was in flight, so you could be ready to send the next one as soon as possible. So all those things come into play when you can't see what's going on from shooters in front of you. And I really wish that more matches were like that. I wish somehow Tom and Shannon could incorporate the AG Cup qualifiers to be more like the AG Cup, especially with the fact that we all realized how important the season points are going into the AG Cup. I think going into day 3, I was able to get, I got to advance over Jonathan Berry by like less than 1.5 points. And that was because of I had such a strong day 1, but he had such a strong season points. It got so close. So I think more guys going into next year are going to realize how important the season points are. And I hope that somehow they can make the qualifiers be more like the AG Cup, because in all honesty, I think the PRS matches where we talk about wind and we watch impacts and we work as little teams and all that is really stupid. It's I don't know.
Well, it depends on who you're shooting with.
Well, that's the other thing, there is the super squads and all that stuff, but I mean, you still have to shoot, right? You still gotta make impacts, make corrections, adjust to what's going on out there. So there is that factor. But as you can see, there's a lot of guys that have won matches, multiple PRS national matches, that didn't make the cut day 1. Mm-hmm. So, I'm not saying anything bad about them or discrediting them being a good shooter, but it makes you wonder if, that separator of being able to see somebody in front of you and know the wind call, it really propels you to the top. So that's why I wish the qualifiers could be more somehow related to the AG Cup match.
Yeah, that is true. Like I realize, for instance, gap grind, where I was so busy, helping my amateur, helping other people in the squad, not thinking, like, I didn't even write down my scores. I'm not the kind of person that can come back after a match and be like, oh yeah, on stage 7 off of the tires, I hit my first 3, I missed the 4th one, went back and hit the last few. But just like not harping on that kind of stuff and just being like, okay, this is my plan, this is what I'm going to do. It helps a lot. We got a few over in the live. John Scouten said he's sorry, he was tired, he didn't mean to fuck you up like that.
The match was over at that point, John. It's all right.
And then also he said, talk about the 1K for 1K in the Mirage. That one was crazy. So one of my favorite things about AG Cup, a lot of people in this sport have a lot more money than me, or a lot nicer things than I do. And every stage, all you guys would come up and you put your glass up and you get on target and then you go down the hill. And I'd be here, I'm like, there are like $20,000 worth of glass here at least. Which one do I want to look through to see this target? And I looked through all of them on that stage and I could not see a single impact. How is that mess, plus the crazy.
And for those that weren't there, that didn't know this, in order to call the impacts on that stage, they actually used cameras on the target so that it took the Mirage out so they could actually see if there was an impact. It was that bad. And so you, as a shooter who doesn't have that advantage and you're looking through your scope, what was that like?
Yeah, so 1,000 for 1,000. The first year of the AG Cup, that stage put me out of contention. I zeroed it. The rain came in a little bit. It was kind of like a little bit of foggy because of the weather temp, and I zeroed that. So I had that in my mind, like going into that stage, and I'm like, you're not going to zero this. You're going to get impacts. You just came off the wall and got 11 out of 12, which I won that stage last year. So it was like a weird combo of how they were back to back. So anyways, you had 2 options. You could go prone and then move and shoot prone. You could go prone and shoot off a bench. So because of the Mirage, I stayed up on the bench. So I went bench, 2 shots, bench, 2 shots, back and forth, back and forth. And that helped cut the Mirage out. So for newer shooters out there, it's not always a benefit to go prone. If you can go modified prone, you can get up off the ground and help clear out that Mirage. So I did that. And I missed my first shot. And then my second shot, I'm like, you know what? I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see jack shit that first shot. Let's try something out of the norm here. And let's just see if we can salvage, 5 points. So I aimed way above the target and I shot into this massive berm that I thought was directly behind the target. Apparently it was like 40 or 50 yards behind it, but I held high. I mean, I don't know, I was a couple mils high. So I was like, I got to see some dust fly. Like there's so much wind out there. The berm looks dusty. So I send one up into this berm and I don't see anything. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I just wasted a round to try to see something and didn't see anything. So I moved to the next one. And, a lot of the shooters there do use this technique, but basically you try to narrow down your probability of your misses on the target, right? So it was a 16-inch target, which was only, I want to say it was like a mil. So my mil and a half, it was like 4/10 wide, a half a mil wide at the most, if I'm doing the math correct. Somebody can do the math real quick. And so I know what my first shot was. I put a mil on the in the center and I saw nothing. So I'm like, well, I don't think it's less than that. I don't think it's less than 7/10. So I moved a mil over to the left side to take out that difference in the spread, and I connected on it. And so I sent my next one and I connected on it. And as I was moving, you could hear the impact feedback come back to us. I had Electric Ear Pro on, so I could hear the impact come back. And I wanted to send around and let it and wait, just so, because they couldn't see very well on the spotter. If we could hear it, they would at least call impact and maybe know, I wouldn't miss an impact call. But I knew I didn't have time for that because we were shooting 1,000 yards, and it took, I don't know, it took like 3 or 4 seconds for the sound to come back. So anyways, I salvaged a 4 out of that, which we were all laughing like that was a good score. And it was a tough stage. Now there was, what was interesting is at the same time, the other squad was shooting 1,000 yards also, and they were shooting off that car. And those targets were a little bit larger. So we both got to shoot 1,000 and 1,000. But I don't know, hopefully next year, I hope Tom doesn't put 2,000 yard stages back to back. And if he does, make them the same size targets, because there was some talk about maybe there was an advantage there for the other squad because they were shooting much larger targets. And if you get the win call, when you literally go to the next 1,000 yard stage, you have an idea of where your win call is going to be. So there was some chatter there about that between us. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't, but I think if you look at the results, I bet the squad that shot that car had higher points once they went to the 1,000 for 1,000. Maybe not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But I will say, after shooting the 1,000 for 1,000 and going to the car and shooting 1,020 yards, I got a 9 out of 10. I went from a 4 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. So that was probably, something that I'll give some feedback on to Tom.
So all of ROs just kind of agreed that those stages were absolutely terrible to RO, and it was real hard to call impacts. John Scout,
I will say on the car stage, Ken and Missy Wheeler said that it was tough to see impacts. And when I sent my first round, I waited and we got sound back of hitting steel. And every shot that I sent, I waited for that sound to come back. So it was like, boom, wait, and then you hear this ding, and they would call impact. Now, some of them they were catching, some of them the plate was moving, some of them the light was going off. But ones that didn't, it was based off of the sound. And I didn't want to fire during a impact sound coming back, and then we all missed the impact. So that was one where I wasn't worrying about time, and just trying to clean it.
Yeah, that seems like a good strategy. There were numerous different strategies we saw in the car. Some were very peculiar. So John Scouten said, what if there were AG qualifier squads with different requirements than regular match squads at the AG Cup qualifiers? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I think that if somehow they could separate and put together everybody who wants to be shoot the AG Cup qualifier, who fork up the money or whatever to try to qualify. If we were all put in same couple squads, and then we had our own little rules, like one, we weren't allowed to talk. It was treated the same way as an AG Cup match. I think that would be cool. We weren't allowed to be on glass. I don't think you could require the match director to create blind stages, but I think you could tell them, listen, you guys, you're fighting for season points. You know what the season points come down to. We don't want you talking, and we don't want you on glass when other people are shooting. I think that could help, but it's just tough. It comes down to people being honest with each other. I mean, when there's 200 people at a match and they can talk to their friends who are maybe in a squad just a couple yards away shooting another stage, and they're like, hey, you know, that last target at 800 yards, we were all holding straight up, but there could be that. But I think there's some integrity in this sport where that wouldn't happen. That's the only way I could think off the top of my head. But match directors are much smarter than I am with coming up with this stuff. So.
Yep.
But it sounds like Scouting's kind of in agreement with me on that too.
Yeah, like I think it'd be cool because Eric asked a question. You know, do we do 2 separate courses of fire? But I think maybe just you know, going with the stricter rules for a particular squad, same course of fire, so that it's a fair match. But you know, you guys are the top of the top shooters, and making you figure everything out on your own and keep the AG Cup style would kind of help a lot. Yeah,
and I don't think we should do different courses of fire. I think it should be the same. So guys who are on the fence about, you know, maybe shooting the AG Cup, and let's say they have a great match, then that's the put your money where your mouth is, and sign up and do it. So I think
Cooper says good luck controlling that.
I think it's kind of
controlling the shooters.
Who said that?
Cooper.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's kind of a self-policing thing.
Nobody can control that guy. So I mean,
yeah. I'm gonna just be quiet. So we need to go back to talking about short action custom some, because I know there's some new products that are on the market, and you're going to tell us about them.
Yeah. So one of the coolest ones is their seating die. It's called the seating die. I just got this a couple weeks ago. I don't know. They let me in on stuff after all of you guys, so I get lucky here and there. But I got that, and I got a dasher sizing die, and I mean, these things, it's almost like you don't even need to lube your cases. It's amazing how smooth they feel and well they work. The other thing that I really like are these new Headspace gauges. So we have Headspace gauges, and we have these bullet, the ogive measuring tools. So I really like those, and it's something where, you know, when you're talking to your buddies and you're like, hey, what's your jump, what's your headspace, and all of that, when you get into some of the cheaper version ones, you can't really talk the same numbers, because we are only talking, you know, a thousandth of an inch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it works for you, and you may say, well, it's 1.800, but it's a different tool, and your tool may measure like 1.795. And so you're trying to give advice to people and stuff like that, but if you're not using the same tools,
mm-hmm.
And then the tolerance, of course, as I mentioned with short action customs and their rifle building, has carried over into their into the different types of reloading components. And one of the cool things with this is they come basically with this little O-ring, and so they just snap in and they pop out. So it's real quick, it's consistent, it's accurate, it's repeatable. So
I can't tell you the amount of frustration from even having, you know, 2 people with the same tool. They look the same, the box looks the same, the package looks the same, the numbers look the same, and then you go and you stick it on a set of calipers and realize that you're, you know, 13 thou different in between the two. Same case, but it's just there's some random arbitrary difference.
Yeah. I think, Greg, you had mentioned that you saw their modular action wrench.
Ooh, yeah.
That's super cool for guys out there who have different actions, hunting rigs. Yeah.
So if you have like your 700 and then your really awesome, beautiful Curtis action there, you're like, oh, I need to change this. You just pull this off, pull that off, grab the other one, put it on, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a super cool tool. And it goes nice with their barrel vise that they have. They got a couple different versions of that. And then the last one I have here is a scope leveling base.
Ooh.
So this guy's pretty cool. You can adjust everything and get your scope and your rings and everything lined up perfectly. And it uses the same, basically an ARCA that your vise sits in. So you can just put them inside and take one off, put the other one in. So all these tools, I mean, Mark's doing his best to keep up to get these things out to everybody, but he's, he doesn't want to take any short corners on anything. So
I'm sorry, Swanee said he would carry a Rooks baby for 9 months, and it just caught me off guard. I'm sitting here reading comments and about choked.
Literally, I sat here and I looked at my background. I'm like, did I pick my nose? Did somebody walk into the room? What is she laughing at?
Oh my gosh, leave it to Swanee.
Love you, Swanee.
That's too funny.
That's awesome. So tell us more about these dies. What what makes these dies better than my off-the-shelf mass-produced dies? I know we talked about the fact that there's no need for lube almost, because they use some sort of a super fancy metal with an even fancier coating on them.
Yeah. So the seating die is awesome, as you can use it on multiple calibers. So you can use it basically, if I remember right, from a 223 up through, I think, a 6 Creedmoor on the 6mm die. It has a nice little bit of resistance on the top here, so when you're turning it, it stops right where you want it. I wish I knew more about everything exactly. All I know is that it works great. Has a floating ball in this that you take out when you go to the bigger caliber. It also has this the tolerance are real close, so when the case is coming out, I mean, it's a pop. I mean, it guides it perfectly. But that's a question where you got to talk to the mad scientists on all the technical details. Something that I don't have in my my shooting bag. I just try to shoot so I can and get an action wrench eventually, and not get kicked off the team. We got a new shooter of Allison Zane who's kicking everybody's ass, and
I say she's coming for you, Rooks.
I know.
She's coming for everybody. No mercy.
Yeah. Hopefully she doesn't shoot the AG Cup next year.
No, I have already got money on her. So
yeah. No, I hope she does, and she's I've never squatted with her, so I'm excited. Hopefully next year I can hop in a squad and learn some things from her.
I'll say I've never squatted with her. I ate dinner with her after a match. Actually, the same match that Short Action Customs donated this super awesome modular action wrench kit to. And not only is she a good shooter, but she's freaking smart. She's got her stuff together better than most full-grown adults.
Yeah, I got her parents really drunk. That's the most we've hung out. So we went to the I met them at the Wisconsin match, and that was the first we all got to hang out and talk, and we threw a few back that night. She didn't, of course. Don't worry.
Of course not.
I said, did she have to drive them home?
No, we
She
were all
drove in
outside the
Wyoming.
hotel.
I'm about to say, I know I saw videos of her driving through Wyoming.
She did drive in Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to see good kids doing. I just think it's refreshing to watch her beating everybody. I think it's awesome.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It makes my day. It made my day when she won. What match did she win? She won a match like a month ago.
North Carolina, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Frontline.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what it was. So if that's anything like the Frontline match in February, that was a freaking hard match. That match absolutely ate my lunch. It was also snowing.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did snow. I did a snow angel.
Yeah, that was a super fun match, but yeah.
That was you say that was in February, or that was the most recent one?
So in February it was snowing when we went up there, and that was just a difficult match. Like the stages were overly challenging, and then like this whole like white stuff on the ground reflecting light in different ways that I've never seen before really messed with me a lot.
Yeah, there was some weird lighting things that was really changing everybody's. I mean, people were having to add like 0.2 of like everybody, no matter what they were shooting, 308, 6 Creed, whatever. Everybody was having to add dope on some stages. It was interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's a big topic of discussion. I think that goes on a lot after matches, during matches. Yesterday I talked to Al Olivier. He called me and was asking me about if I had to change elevation at all day one because of lighting, and I did. And it's not something I can say that I can predict. When the sun starts to get over top or slightly behind, I do find times where I'm taking dope out of my gun. But at the same time, I don't want to change what my Kestrel's telling me to do for elevation. But at the same time, I'm also watching where my impacts are on steel. And I saw that I was starting to hit high. And that's when I ended up taking out a 10th. But that wind also plays kind of havoc on you too, especially when it's coming from the left and it's trying to push your bullet down. If the wind dies off, then you start to ride high because you have the elevation in for the wind. So it's all about just spotting and adjusting accordingly.
Or in my case, cheating off of the person in front of you. At Frontline in February, it was so weird. Because different stages it was different, but it was always like everybody was adding the same thing. So Corey Adamski was shooting in front of me with his 308, and I'm there with my 6.5. I'm like, yo, what do you add to your dope? And he's like, I'm shooting a 308. I'm like, I don't know where to start. Tell me what you got. And his little additions and subtractions worked for me. I'm so horrible, but it did work. So we talked about some of the short action customs products. What's your favorite product? If you were to choose one product, what would it be?
Oh man, I would say these new dyes probably are my favorite product. But if I had to say my favorite thing with short action customs in terms of what you can get from them, their paint schemes, their Cerakote work that they've been coming out with in the last year is pretty awesome. I've gotten so much feedback on it, and it was something that they offered Cerakote work, right? But then precision rifles kind of starting to evolve with these chassis is starting to evolve into different types of paint schemes, right? People like to do
beautiful lime green,
right? Yeah. Or like throw in like the B-52 bomber or the bomber face with the mouth and all of that stuff. So it's really cool what they're doing with their rifles now. But I would say these dyes are probably my favorite product right now.
That's awesome. Mine's probably going to be this action wrench, because my job, I'm a manufacturing engineer. I do mostly like automation stuff, but like it's my job to tell people how to put stuff together repeatedly and exactly the same every time. And being able to take this and be like, okay, you know, this barrel in action is torqued to 35 foot-pounds. This barrel in action is torqued to 90 foot-pounds. And that's the way it goes together every time. You know, it's one less variable to have out there, and it's super easy to do that with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, anytime I can find something that's more consistent, more repeatable, where it's not like, oh, well, you know, the gun's shooting different this time I put it together. I want it to be exactly the same every single time. I also take stuff apart more than normal people. I like taking stuff apart. So that really helps a lot.
So your 2020 season, did it go as planned? I know COVID has like really put a wrench in everybody's plans. I know me and you have traded war stories because we're both in the medical field. So did any of your matches get canceled? Did it uproot your season?
Oh man, it pushed everything back. And so with having a 17-month-old kid, I was hoping to get a lot of the matches done in the spring and then take the summer off and then get warmed up going into the AG Cup. But unfortunately, none of the matches in the spring really happened, I think with the exception of one, which was K&M. And then they were all pushed into like late July and then into the AG Cup. So that was kind of frustrating. And it was kind of, you can get burnt out from this pretty easy. You got to spread it out. All the travel, the time you take away from work, from family and all that, it can burn you out really quick. So I've always tried to spread them out and shoot in the spring, shoot in the fall, and then shoot the championship matches. So this year was definitely tougher. I had a second place finish at a match here in Ohio. I had a top, I think it was top 10 or somewhere around 12th or 10th place at Big Dog Steel shooting a 7 SAUM. I shot a 2-day match with a 7 SAUM. That was pretty fun.
What led to that decision? This
guy named Big Truck, you might have heard of him, Craig Thomas. He shoots a 300 Win Mag. He just likes to talk a lot of trash, and he was making fun of me for shooting a dasher. So I said, all right, fine, I'll shoot a Magnum cartridge. So I shot a 7 SAUM with 190 grain bullets, 190 AMAXs. I probably shot more in ammunition than the entry fee, but
I was going to say, that's not cheap.
But it was definitely worth it. It was a lot of fun. And so I had a couple top 10 finishes, and I would have liked to squeaked out a win, but that's just how the season goes. It's so competitive anymore. I mean, but the AG Cup capped it off. I would say that it exceeded my expectations with top 5 finish at the AG Cup.
That's awesome. So what are your shooting goals for 2021? Do you have any specific goals or?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm planning on shooting, I probably plan on shooting only AG Cup qualifier matches with the exception of some of the ones that are close to home. And the goal on those would definitely be, 290 plus points for the season. And then, do my best to try to win the AG Cup. Anything can happen. I mean, the shooters that are there, it's tough, but I was close. I was definitely close this year. Few points, 1 point here on a stage, 2 points here on a stage, and I was right there in it, but coulda, shoulda, woulda.
That's always a fun one to be, going back and looking at where you placed versus where you could have and been like, oh, if I didn't do this one thing here, if I didn't do that one thing there, I would have went from, in my case, it's, I could have gone from 120th place to 100th place. I maybe could have got 99th if I didn't do these 3 things wrong.
Yeah, but mine isn't 3 things. Mine is always just if I didn't suck the whole match,
No.
then I could have done better.
I think there's a time where, a lot of us have been in those situations, and then something clicks. You start to figure out how you start scoring sevens, sixes or higher, stages that you need to clean, you clean them. You don't let those zeros happen anymore. You don't let those 2 and 3s happen anymore. It takes time, and it's something that just clicks. I'm trying to figure that out with my golf game, but I don't know if I'll ever get there. So.
The Masters is happening just like, I don't know, like 157 yards that way from my house right now.
That's awesome.
157 yards is the Kroger.
Yeah, that is the Kroger, but it's just like another 157 to the Masters.
Call Sean Murphy, have him bring his little fancy little lasery thing and figure out exactly how far away the Masters is from
We did maybe laser the Kroger. It was pretty funny. But yeah, Masters is just right over there with all the good golfers and no spectators. It's very odd.
They're not letting any in this year?
Nope.
At
No
all?
Spectators. It's very, very weird.
I thought maybe they were going to let some in.
No, we don't even have tickets, and we get tickets like Mad Masters tickets. I work for one of the companies that my company produces is Easy Go Golf Cars, and we're like a huge part of the Masters, and we don't even have anything.
Very, very fun. So I think we had one more question. What do you think is in the future for short action customs? Can you leak us anything?
Ooh, secrets. I like secrets.
Overall, I think they're going to keep growing. Mark's doing a great job with running that business, and he's got a great dedicated team. So I think you're going to continue to see more growth. As for product development, there's a couple things I've heard that are in the works that that's all they tell me. They won't tell me exactly what it is. So I don't have anything to leak, but I think you might see a couple things here coming into 2021.
Sweet. We're excited for that. They, like we said before, they don't release anything that's just like, oh, another one of blank.
Yeah.
It's all innovative.
Mm-hmm.
Very good stuff. Are there any more lives, Greg?
I should click over here to Facebook.
Do your job.
Not going to read that one out loud. Not going to read that one out loud.
Who's that from? Swanee?
Swanee. Something about a grandpa. Troy Lipsy said he'll give you golf lessons if you give him shooting lessons.
He did let me borrow some gear, and we did share a cabin together. We shared all kinds of lessons.
I was about to say, what else did y'all share?
Swanee,
Nothing
what the
else?
heck, man? Yeah, we'll call this good. I'm just gonna stop.
Has Swanee blown up the comments again?
I don't even know where this. Oh, so Eric, the RO with the mostest, said modular barrel vise, and that looks like it was about the time that we were talking about our favorite things. But
Your gun is supposed to be your favorite thing.
Oh, it's definitely my favorite thing. That's for sure. That's just a standard.
That's just understood, huh?
Yeah, it's right here.
And what caliber is it?
6 Dasher.
I was about to say you're a Dasher boy, aren't you?
Yeah, I was 647 for a long time. And of course, everybody's heckled me about that. So I figured I would try the Dasher, and it's nice. I mean, it is, it's a nice cartridge. you know, you got to take some time and make sure that it feeds correctly. But I had to do the same thing when I got my 647. Now that I have the Masterpiece Arms BA chassis, though, it has the adjustable latch in it, and it really was actually very simple when I went to the dasher. All I had to do was change the height on the latch, and there was no issues at all. So that really helped, instead of having to, you know, kind of bend your lips on the mags to adjust the height and the direction of the round. With the mag latch, it was easy.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I have actual valid questions now. Mike Bell wants to know what scope you have, Mr. Rooks.
Call us 5 to 25.
And then Chad Heckler said he just finished up a barrel and used the modular barrel vise and modular action wrench, and that's why he's late to the party. Great products.
Yeah, it's good stuff. The modular the vise, it has the adjustable pieces that go in it, the aluminum pieces. So whatever contour you're running, you can adjust it. You change those in and out per your contour of your barrel.
Yeah, it is definitely a really nice vise. I'm a little bit too poor for it, but it is definitely on the want list. John Sneed said Matt's one of the nicest in the sport, and he wants to know what your practice regimen is like.
Oh man, John's a legend. He's one of those guys when I first started that, you know, I was definitely watching and wanting to be as good as he is. I hope that I can do what he's still doing. So I would say practice for me at this point is a mental game. You know, before the AG Cup, I went out to my range and I was just doing fundamentals. And those fundamentals were, I mean, basic fundamentals, like going into position on prone, knowing what height my bipod was with the bag that I'm going to use. Going modified prone with knowing what bag to use with my bipod height. Little things that are stressors that can happen to you that shouldn't happen to you on a stage. Those are the types of things that I practiced before the AG Cup. So I knew when I was starting a stage in the AG Cup, all I was thinking about was, okay, from position 2, shoot target 2, from position 3, shoot target 3, then move to this position and shoot that. All those things that you have to do in the stage, it's a subconscious thought of everything else is what you want to get to. And so those were the little things that I practiced. The other thing I practiced was focusing on basically bracketing my wind calls on target. That was probably the other thing I practiced, but most of it is just mental approach, you know, not being overconfident and being able to think when you're on the clock and think about things that happen when you're on the clock, whether the wind dying or the wind picking up or your can't or any of those things. That reminded me of stage. It was the second to last stage. It was the KYL stage at the AG Cup Day 3. So we went up there. It was getting towards the evening, and the wind was dying down, and it was kind of a boil out there. And so you get to 5 minutes. You're reading wind. You're studying what you're going to do. It was a straightforward stage. So everybody's like, I'm done. So when we were up there was no wind. When I went up there, I got my 30 seconds to look through glass before shooting the stage. Thank God I looked through glass. The wind was howling. It had come back. So I put 7/10 of wind on the target at 400 yards. I think it was an 11-inch target. And I saw it spin right. So I kept the 7/10 in the center on the next one, slightly to the left, and I was dead solid. So I went through. Well, by the time I got down to the 2-inch target, which is only a tenth of a mil wide, I missed off the left, like the wind was dying down. So when I went and I ran back through, basically, long story short, I hit the 2-inch target on my last shot at 400 yards with 1/10 of wind on the target. So I started with 7/10 and I finished with 1/10 of wind to hit a 2-inch target at 400 yards. So those are the things, like, you got to be able to keep your brain going during that short 90 seconds of time to think it through.
Well, y'all had a tailwind a good part of the time. That third day there was a tailwind, so it just kind of kept changing. I know y'all had, it just seemed like it was different. Mid-stage it would change.
Oh yeah, it was if I remember right, day 2 was more of a tailwind. Day 3 was coming out of like between 9:30 and 11 o'clock. So but it would be 11 o'clock, it would be 9:30, it would be on, it would be off. It's just something you had to read in the moment.
And you had to read it in the moment because you didn't get to watch before.
No.
That was crazy. Any more good live questions?
I believe we are good.
All right. I think we can wind this one down to shout outs. Greg, we'll let you start.
Oh man, put me on the spot.
Yep.
So I have GSL suppressors. At some point in time, there's going to be a beautiful one over here, and then on my rim pirates in this case, as soon as they get released by the government from Crack Shot Pawn and Firearms in Thompson, Georgia. Shooters and Sharpshooters of Augusta are awesome local outdoor ranges. PDC Custom, the most beautiful rifle chassis known to man. They are available in the beautiful lime green or like normal human colors. NDZ Performance built a real sweet Gucci Glock. Shooter's World Powder. Still have it everywhere. If you can't find Varget, check out the Precision Rifle Powder. I'm shooting very, very similar loads and very, very similar speeds with lower SDs and more accurate rounds than a lot of the Varget shooters out there. Hunter's HD Gold, because I'm blind and they make me unblind. You can get just your regular run-of-the-mill shooting glasses, or you could get your Oakleys with your custom prescription lenses, or in some people's cases a bifocal lens, and Vortec to keep your rifle nice and clean.
Matt, what shout out you got?
Oh man, I want to just thank all my my sponsors that got me through this year and last year and the year before that. I've kept the same crew. I mean, really, since I started, I've just kind of gained sponsorships: Short Action Customs, Collis Optics, Swarovski binoculars, Masterpiece Arms. Yeah, they're pretty nice. Masterpiece Arms was one of my first sponsors with Short Action Customs. Phil, we've become really good friends. He makes awesome stuff. I run his scope mount and chassis system. Hawk Hill barrels, bricks. We don't know about that guy, but we do know one. He is pretty good at making barrels. Trigger Tech, I run the Diamond Pro Curve. I've played with their 2-stage trigger that they just came out with. It's super, super nice, but I found out I'm just a single stage trigger guy. Impact Actions, Tate and the crew, they've got a really nice action that I switched to this year and really enjoying it. And Area 419, I'm running their new Maverick suppressor system. I run it in the longer configuration for more sound suppression with the brake, and loving that thing. So excited for next year with these guys and continue on.
That's awesome. And for me, I have Prime Ammunition and Night Force Optics and Macmillan Stocks. HD Gold, Shooters of Augusta, Sharpshooters of Augusta, and GSL suppressors. I just picked this up tonight. My little 22 can that is the Woodland. So I'm excited to try that out. Awesome suppressors. So good times. I'm excited about that. But I think that is about it. And I want to thank you for coming on for an hour and a half, spending your evening with us.
Yeah.
I know that you could be doing
This
a
is
lot of
awesome.
other stuff like dry firing and all, but it was cool to get to talk to you.
You guys have an awesome show. One thing I forgot I didn't leak, I'll leak it at the very end. Maybe some people will see this. I've actually been working on something on the real down low, really, really quiet. There's only a couple people who knows about this, but working on, and hopefully I'll have it here in about a month or two, a virtual reality scope training system where it will mount on your rifle and we can simulate wind, we can simulate impacts. You will dry fire and the impacts will be sensed off of your dry fire. So that's about all I can say. The patent's been approved on that, so that's why I can release it. But hopefully when I get it, maybe I can come back on and show you guys.
I was about to say, we need to go ahead and schedule another show as soon as we get off the air and figure out a way to do some really cool demos with this.
Yeah, so more to come. Hopefully we can incorporate reticles, download reticles, and even the goal is to download layouts of, like, say, K&M or Arena or all these other facilities that we go to. I'm going to hopefully be able to take a camera and incorporate the layout view and stuff like that.
That is some really cool shit.
So yeah, we'll keep you posted on that.
Very cool. Leaking the stuff right at the last minute. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
right at the last minute. I wanted to save it for the end.
That's like, you know,
wait, you guys are still recording? Oh, man.
I know. That's like the movies that have, isn't it Star Wars, that like after they start
After
like
the credits,
then they like leak something.
Yeah.
It's just,
the other one was
like,
what was it? It was a Marvel, one of the Marvel movies did that.
Oh yes, my kids are very upset about that. I can't remember what it was, but they were like, I think the term of the year then was "I'm so shook," and they were like, "Well, I'm so shook," whatever that means. But anyway.
So this new product, who's going to be? Is that Short Action Customs or?
No, it's a more of my personal business that I have kind of going, but Short Action Customs will definitely be one of the first to use it and test it, and give me feedback on that. But
gotcha. I was just trying to let our viewers know where to look on the social medias, but yeah, we're definitely gonna be talking to you about coming up with a show for that.
Yep, for sure.
Be very, very cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we will have you back on in no time, I'm sure. So
cool.
That's going to wrap it up for episode 316 of the Shooter's Mindset.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.